right. Well, so locally, we've got the teachers are revolting. In Alberta, it looks like they may be going on strike as soon as this Monday, and parents are on the hook. I think we might be in for the long haul for a bit on this one.
Let me just give you some numbers to chew over. They were offered a 12% raise over 4 years. Teachers with 5 years education and 5 years in classroom experience would be making well over $100,000 for 10 months work. The deal included 1,500 new educational assistants, 3,000 new teachers, to go along with $8.6 billion in new school construction. And Alberta teachers rejected that by 89.5%. They're angry and they've had enough, and they're going to likely go on strike on Monday. To help parents, they're going to get $30 a day to pay for daycare or whatever else they have to do with their kids, $150 a week, and that money is going to come from the teachers, what would have been their salaries, but they're not getting them anymore. They're not getting paid while they're on strike, so that money is going to families, and there's going to be online courses that parents can get the teachers going on. But if I was a betting man, I'd say it's going to last a while, this strike.
Yeah, I think the premier is laying down a reputation as a hardliner on everything that she touches. What we've just been talking about with the pipelines is actually a pretty hardline response, notwithstanding some of Corey's reservations. She's taken pretty strong positions on some of the fringe areas around the Education Act with the pornographic textbooks and in terms of the transgender stuff, she's been very firm. Wait till you're 18, wait till you're an adult. So she is not afraid, unlike some premiers, she does not just sort of see which way the wind is blowing. She's got her ideas, she puts it out there, and my sense is that she's not going to like this, and she will fight them. You're right. This could go on for a while.
I'm liking where she's going already. Again, preparing parents, try to do what she can. She's already basically signaling to the teachers too, we're not going to flip and settle overnight, guys. You rejected a good offer. We're going to starve you out a little bit here. Elise, I mean, BC and unions, boy, that's certainly an area, and few things put chills into the spine of a politician more than dealing with a teacher's strike of all things, when you have a bunch of upset parents and pressure put on things. But do you think Premier Smith's going to be able to weather this storm?
I think so. If I could give a little advice, I'm a former spinner for the Gordon Campbell government, and a little bit of the Christy Clark government. And I'll say there were years where it was just rolling strikes. My child was caught in years of strike action from kindergarten all the way through to grade 6. And I regret not pulling my child out and putting her in the public or private system. I would say that we've gone through some heavy duty strikes here. And I would say that you must hold the line. What I can't understand, I looked at the offer that the Alberta teachers was put on the table by the government, and I compared it to what BC's last offer was. And that in BC, the BCTS contract actually expires next spring. So we don't have that long. But I would say that Alberta teachers are far, far ahead than almost every teaching federation or association in the country. I think the sticking point, and I think there's more to this as well, they didn't like the book ban. They've got membership, and they're much like the BCTF, and maybe more so at the BCTF. That's quite militant in its approach. They didn't like being told what type of books they should read, what type of literature and conversation they should be having with their students. I think there's some of that at play as well, and they want to push her. And this is a bit of a revenge thing as well. But I would say that I understand some of the parts that the Alberta teachers are complaining about, which is really a federal problem. It has a lot to do with class size caps, and that was a sticking feature and has been for almost 12 years in British Columbia. Each province is seeing almost about a 10% growth in their classrooms. That's a lot for teachers, and every child now seems to have an issue. And without the special needs of special education attached to that, or aid workers, the deal really isn't going to get done. So my advice to the Alberta government is fixate on that, demonstrate to the public that you're coming to the table, because there is a lot of parental support. I was surprised. There's a lot of parental support in Alberta for the teachers, but it's sticking on this issue. And I think that you can bring kids back to the classroom the way that we did once we finally, in the third iteration of these strikes, we relented and we were able to look at class size caps and also the addition of more aid workers. I will say Premier Smith has almost come to fully to the table on that. It's just there's a few numbers there that need to be worked out, I think.
It's interesting what you're saying there about parental support for the teachers.
It matters.
Yes. Well, I have a few people friends in the teaching profession who say that there is a hate on in the teaching profession for the Smith government. It doesn't, I'm not sure what a good deal could have looked like, which would have got past that. They just don't like the idea that somebody else, not just teachers, somebody else has got some firm ideas on how children should be taught and what they should be taught. I mean, you mentioned the books just now, and I mentioned them earlier too. When you look at what we've got there, like you would have been put in prison 20 years ago if you'd have offered that stuff in a school. So I have to say that if parents are supporting that, well, my sympathies are somewhat diminished.
You look on
I'll tell
Monday,
you, Nigel.
as of Monday, the teachers are without pay. Right, there is no strike fund to pay the strikers. You know, you normally, if you show up on picket line duty, you get a daily stipend. There is no money for that for teachers. So, Corey, you talked about starving them out. As of Monday, if they go on strike, teachers have no income.
And I mean, they got to, pay for the summer cottage for their 2 months off somehow.
Yes, and their Christmas vacations
And the November vacation. And
there's
the February
Family Day,
vacation,
long weekend.
Arbor Day,
Yes.
you name it.
Black
Do
History
these people
Month.
are much on these wretched radio ads that we keep hearing?
I don't know. It makes me
Where'd all those union dues go?
it makes me question
I
how
would-
financially secure the union is if they can't afford strike pay.
Yep.
But that said,
I
there
would-
is 51,000 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I would remind you guys, and I would remind the teachers that it's public knowledge at our fingertips. Just a Google search. The BCTF and the Alberta teachers and the Quebec teachers and the Ontario teachers, and Ontario's an even bigger mess. They have never met a government that they can do business with. And it's been proven with the NDP, the successive governments in British Columbia, the NDP governments from the original, Glenn Clark governments, all the way to David Eby. It's not just right of center or, conservative governments, for example. They like to play that narrative as the big meanie, they're right-wing fascists. They want to crush us. Well, I would look at the comments they made about Rachel Notley when they were in their negotiations. They were hardliners then. They didn't like her then. They don't like David Eby. They didn't like John Horgan. So this is more about ideology. It's a militant ideology. And unfortunately, I don't think it represents, like the postal workers, and I've talked to many BC teachers, for example, they're frustrated by these militant union leaders that get ahead and get elected. And what we noticed is that if we gave them enough rope, they would not swing, but the house of cards would fall down, and they eventually do turn on each other. And that's when you have to come back in and say, okay, we're going to come to the table. We understand the capping of class size. And I will say the capping of class size is a pretty antiquated thing to stand, you hold your ground on. And it's 10 years old. We've all the governments have fought about this. You eventually have to relent because it is an immigration issue. And with immigration has come some serious socioeconomic problems that we are just not prepared. And unfortunately, the front line is the classroom and our healthcare system.
Elise, I think we have to remember that there are some really good people in the teaching profession. There are. However, only 11% voted in for the deal. And I wonder if that gives you some idea of the proportion of the
You've got to own it when it's a vote. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
the rhetoric too, as you're talking about with ideology and so on, I was mentioned there with our creepy Senator Wells calling Premier Smith the dictator,
yes.
which is kind of ironic considering at least she was elected, he was appointed. So if anybody's more of a dictator, it would be that strange little man. But he's really torquing this sort of thing. I mean, we've got a senator stepping between and getting in the way between a provincial and a school strike going on, like this is going to get ugly.
Yeah, it's none of his business, really. And you're right, he is creepy. And you're right, the rhetoric needs to be toned down. And it's only going to get worse until Monday.
Well, the other aspect too, and we've talked about that a lot. We've had John Hilton O'Brien speak of it. If anything's going to help parents start to reconsider keeping their kids in the regular public system, it's when the teachers do things like this. The teachers union despises the thought of more charter schools or private schools or homeschooling, but it's just this sort of thing that makes parents realize that maybe I like those options better.
Yep, you can see charter school enrollment booming next year.
Yep.
It happened in British Columbia. The private schools and what you guys call charter schools completely boomed, and it's maintained and it's grown in British Columbia because, like Canada Post, BC's education system became extremely unreliable. I'm not joking when I say it was 6 school years of rotating strikes, black armbands as well. The teachers were wearing black armbands, dressed all in black. It horrified the children. It was a horrible time in our province, but private schools, other types of schools have done nothing but extremely well in this province.